Dear friends, welcome to Masada, Fortress of Faith and Resistance. Standing on the height of Masada, overlooking the Judean desert and the Dead Sea, the story of courage and faith echoes through these ancient stones. Built by Herod the Great, later held by Jewish rebels, Masada was the last stronghold during the First Jewish-Roman War. Here, history and faith meet. The ruins speaks of sacrifice, survival, and the human longing for freedom. As we climb the 40-minute path to the top, we walk where heroes once stood, a reminder that faith and endurance often rise from the wilderness. We reflect as we go up. Psalms chapter 18 verse 2. The Lord is my rock, my fortress and my deliverer. Psalms 18 verse 2. Let's enjoy together this holy pilgrimage to Masada, a journey of faith, a journey of trust.
Protected by the valleys and the valley that you see. So we are on the north, south, and on the south and on the western part you have the valley which is called the Masada Valley, and there is another valley on the northern side which is called the Azar Ben Yair Valley. Azar Ben Yair, he was the commander, the head commander of the rebels. So we are talking about this topographical natural formation which becomes with Herod one of the strongholds which will be taken by the Romans as the last stronghold, because the Romans, they took close to Bethlehem, it was a Herodian. They took on the other side of the Jordan and the Dead Sea, the Machaerus, where John the Baptist was beheaded, and they left this place as the last place to take, because it was isolated and it was easy to take it. In order to take, they created a ramp that you see on the western side. You can see this here, a ramp which was created, and with the military instrument, they enter inside. We will see now the film representing this Romans intervention and Roman conquest of this place. And the place was conquered in 73 after the temple was destructed and the Romans started to conquer everywhere. The Romans arrived here in 63 before Christ, and Herod became king in 37. 37. Herod, he was not a Jew originally. His mother was Nabatean, and his father was Idumean. And we are talking about the Shephelah that I talked to you, the area in which it is located, Idumea, the ancient Idumea. So he was not originally a Jew, but he was elected by the Romans as the representative of the Romans here, because of his father was involved with the Romans, Antipater. And after his father was killed, he had to flee to Rome. In meanwhile, left his mother and his future wife Mariamne and her mother here, protected by Masada as the fortress, and protected by the 800 people, the soldiers. And when the Parthians and Hasmoneans, they came, they were not able to take over. And he came back from Rome and he took over the kingdom in 37. So now we are going to see the film and I will start to talk about the history of research and what is related to Masada in Josephus. As I told you, Josephus is the unique, the only source that we have, written source that we have to understand this site. And he is presenting in a balanced way because he's in Rome, and he's a Jew, and he's trying to present the Jew reaction against the Rome in the archives that he found in Rome. And one of the commander who took over this place was Silva, and we will see from the film. And probably in that time he was Rome, and he was counting. He was telling Josephus directly what happened in that occasion. So he should balance his vision. So at the end he gives to one group which is called Sicari in the sources, these rebellions against the Romans. So you know, we have the Sadducees, we have the Pharisees. We will talk about the Essenes, and we will talk. There were the Zealots and Sicari, and these groups are different groups that we find during the Jesus time. And one of these violent, because they choose to rebel with the arms, was the Sicaries, and the Sicaries, according to Josephus, were here. But we know from the sources that among these defenders there were also Samaritans and also Essenes. So now we are going to see the film. After the film, 34 people will go by foot, and the other people will come with me to take the cable car, and we will meet up. And the 34 people, we are waiting for the film. I can talk about this, what you see here. So the wall was protecting this, even though the natural protection was the strength of this hill. In any case, he put the different towers and walls. The walls are called casemate walls. Casemate walls are typical walls created, a kind of the rooms created with two walls, parallel walls, and these rooms are normally used at a peaceful time as living rooms, maybe storerooms. But during the time of the war, they were filling with sand and stones in order to reinforce the wall itself. So the casemate wall that you will hear, and it belongs to the Hasmonean and Herodian time, were used here. So we will see in a different context, like rooms, but in reality they were used as walls during the time of the war. In English.
Yes, please.
And you have three different palaces. Two palaces were used for banquet, and
Masada is a mountain, but it is also an historic episode that the talented historian and writer Josephus Flavius wrote about almost 2,000 years ago. His account contains all the elements of a fantastic drama in which Jews, Romans, and idealists fight to the death. It's no wonder that Hollywood jumped at the opportunity to tell this fascinating story. With an impressive set and thousands of extras, they created a colossal film featuring the rebel leader Eleazar, son of Yair, and the Roman commander Flavius Silva in the leading roles. However, in the movie, unlike real life, no one really deals with the dilemmas or personal struggles, and certainly not with the more problematic aspects of the story. Then where should we start our story? We could start with the Hasmoneans, who were the first to discover the advantages of this isolated cliff in the heart of the desert. Or we could start at the end, with a dramatic project of Masada excavations, with Eliadim, the head of the excavation team, would stand on the mountain and read Josephus Flavius' description of the account, and everyone around him could actually hear the echoes of the fighting. Or we could start the quest with King Herod. Herod, who ruled under the auspices of the Romans, built himself a magnificent fortress here on the mountain, which was to be his sanctuary in troubled times. And believe me, he really had troubles. Herod, like any other king, built his palaces to the highest standards of his day. One of them is this Western palace. Herod's architect was probably a short guy. Here he built himself a bathhouse, and he would put his lamp here and enter his bath. What can I tell you? This king loved the good life. Until now, we spoke about Herod. It wasn't the splendor of Herod's style that made Masada what it is today. The year 66 AD, the Jews rebelled against the Roman Empire. 4 years later, the temple is destroyed. Jerusalem falls. Everywhere else, the rebels were suppressed. Masada is the last stronghold where there are still Jewish rebels. And believe me, they didn't need Herod's palaces. The rooms in the wall were divided and used as living quarters. They lived from food in the storerooms, and they drank water from the cisterns, kindly left behind by Herod long ago.
Right from the beginning of the excavations, signs of the rebels were found elsewhere, in the palaces, in the ritual baths, and in particular in the wall. The deepest experience I went through in Masada was when they found in this particular room the first piece of scroll. To see Hebrew letters coming out of the ground, the same letters which are used until today. Later, more fragments of scrolls were found. One I found with my own hands, but the first experience is unforgettable.
Throughout the revolt, groups of refugees sought asylum on the mountain. About 1,000 rebels gathered in this fortress in the heart of the wilderness. In 73 AD, the Romans' 10th Legion arrived with thousands of armed soldiers who deployed themselves around the mountain. An enormous war machine. And the movies do it best, after the Romans, of course. The Romans built an attack ramp. The besieged rebels rolled stones down it. The Romans lifted a tower to the top of the ramp, equipped with a battering ram to smash the wall. The besieged erect a wood and earthen wall to sustain the blows of the battering ram. The Romans burned it, but the wind almost burns their own tower. Then the wind veering as if by divine providence to the south, blowing with full force in the opposite direction, flung flames against the wall, which now was all ablaze. And in the evening, when the wall was burnt and breached, the Roman army returned to its camps, assured that the whole affair would be over by morning. But Eleazar had ideas of his own. This is it, the last night. My friends, we've reached the climax of the drama. However, unlike the movie, here apparently the events actually took place. And here at Masada, men with families were forced to decide slavery or death. Eleazar had no doubts, but he had yet to convince his comrades in arms. Ladies and gentlemen, the speech of Eleazar. Oh, my loyal followers, the time has now come that obliges us to make that resolution true in practice. Let our wives die before they are abused, and our children before they have tasted slavery, and preserve ourselves in freedom as an excellent funeral monument for us, as we have preferred death before slavery. Once Eliadim was asked what was the most important artifact he found on Masada. Dozens of priceless objects were found here, he answered, but if I must point to one find, it would be these ostraka. These potsherds. These may be the lots that I'm holding now. Potsherds on which the rebels wrote their names. 10 men who were chosen were the only ones who remained. Their equipment had already burned, and each of them had already killed his wife and children. Then they drew the lots. Who would kill the 9th man and fall on his own sword? And in the morning the Romans arrived, and besides 2 women and a few children, everyone was dead. After the drama came silence. The silence was broken in the 5th century for nearly 200 years by a community of Byzantine monks. 1,200 years later, the first explorers came and rediscovered the mountain. Then the members of the youth movements, seeking a symbol of Jewish heroism, discovered Masada and adopted the mountain. After them came the hikers and the tourists. Masada had become a focus of pilgrimage. Professor Nesser, what do you really think about the act of courage that ended in suicide?
Maybe it's the utmost courage to prefer death to a life of slavery.
So it's death or freedom?
Yes, death as a free man or slavery at the hands of the Romans. Which choice would you make?
No matter what, Masada has become a symbol of staunch resistance against a fierce enemy. And if it is a symbol, then perhaps this might be some kind of victory. Ladies and gentlemen, I invite you to climb the mountain.
Okay.